Well, welcome into week 2 of a series called My Life, My Rules. And if you were with us last week, I just want to give you a disclaimer. My wife said to me after the service, she said, you probably should have given the disclaimer that I did not rip pages out of a real Bible. Okay, so if you're new with us, you're like, you ripping pages out of Bibles here? Nope. It is a dictionary, a style and guide, 50 cents at the bookstore. And so if anybody wants a 13-page less dictionary and style guide, you are welcome to have it. It's all yours. This is my Bible, and I wouldn't rip pages out of it. Yet some of us do, metaphorically, right, to justify not following God's rules and living for our rules. And so what I want to do today, as we talked about last week, what are the rules? Today I want to establish why. Why are there rules? And what I want to do is I want to start with a question for you and just kind of think about this in your mind and think about this in your soul. If you could create the rules for the entire world, would you? Now, when I asked myself that question, initially I'm like, yeah, that'd be kind of fun for about 7 minutes. Because I've done some things here in my 3 years that you hate me for. I'm like, could you imagine trying to make rules for the whole world? 9 billion people, you better have some big shoulders and some slick feathers to let the anger and the animosity run off your back and off your shoulders. If you could create the rules. Now, we have rules in our house, and I shared some of mine last week. And I came across this bit by Jimmy Fallon, and he had this bit, the hashtags about my family is weird house rules that people had growing up. This one came from Alyssa 47D. If we didn't eat what was cooked for dinner, it was served for breakfast the next morning cold. Can you imagine leftover roast beef and gravy? That gelatinous, that you better clear your table. That one would be nasty. But that was their house rule. They had a rule. This next one was from Brienne B. Said, no country music at all. It was outlawed in our house. And some of you are like, amen to that. And some of you are like, no way, country rocks. All right, that's okay. We'll pray for you. You have This one's actually a good one. I like this one. Monica J411 said, we had TV poker chips. For every 30 minutes we watched television, it would cost us a chip. We could earn more by doing chores, or we could lose what we had based on our behavior. This is kind of a fun house rule. A couple more just for fun. Kitwin Chuf said this, I was a ravenous reader, so when I would get grounded, it would be outside of my room. And that was the worst form of punishment. That one makes me laugh. We have one of our kids that when we punished her, we had to send her by herself outside of her room because she just wanted to be with people. So I get that one. This last one was sent in by Dan and Kim Mack. Our kids are never allowed to ask for a sleepover in front of their friend, the person they're wanting to have a sleepover with, or the answer is an automatic no. They said, us parents hate being put on the spot. That's a house rule. You probably have house rules in your home. You probably have rules that you follow. But what we did last week, and what I want you to understand as we go through this series, is house rules and your rules are not necessarily the governing rules. And when we put our rules on other people and try to have that govern them, we break down. What rules or whose rules do you follow? Because the truth of the matter is, all of us have rules that we should be following. And we looked at these last week, the rules that God established, and no other gods before me, and don't make idols, and we read those last week, and we'll get to them in a minute. But the truth of the matter is, everybody here and everybody listening online, we are all governed by rules. Every single one of us have rules that govern our day. I want you to think about this in the context of even this morning, but in the context of tomorrow morning. You got to be to work by 8 or work by 9. You got to be to school. And so this governs you. This rules you. And you can choose to press snooze and get an extra 9 minutes, which, by the way, who came up with 9? Like, why not 11 or 8? Like, I don't get 9. That's beyond me. 9 must be a good number. I don't get it. I want 40. Like, give me a snooze of 40 more minutes, and then I'll be good. But if you press snooze too many times, you're forced to, do I obey this rule or not obey this rule? It's called hygiene. Because if you press snooze 5 times, you're now 45 minutes late, and you're tempted to skip the shower. You're tempted to skip brushing your teeth, like, I'll just grab some scope on the way out the door. And then you go down the stairs, and you're trying to eat healthy, but you're in a rush, and you're like, I don't want the apple. This has fruit in it anyway. And so you grab a Pop-Tart. Healthy living is trying to rule your day. You're like, forget it. I don't have time. I'm just going to grab a Pop-Tart. It's so much easier. It's so much more convenient. And then you're driving to school, or you're driving to work, or you're driving to the appointment, and you're governed by rules. Don't speed. Don't text and drive. Stay in your lane. Don't use the tall finger at the person beside. There's all sorts of rules. That one's a common courtesy. That's not necessarily law, but don't do that. You don't want that. And then you get to school and you're like, there's rules at school. There's just constant rules that govern my day. Constant rules everywhere you go. If you work at an office complex, there's typically set lunch breaks. You have 30 minutes or maybe an hour, and you're tempted to break the rule. Well, I'll take 35. They're not going to know. How will they know? I'll take an hour and 7. I'll check out early. They're not going to know. Every single day, every single one of us, we are ruled. We are governed by rules. Which goes back to the question that I asked at the very beginning, just real quick. If you could create the rules for the world, would you? Because on paper, it sounds fun. That'd be kind of fun, set the rules for everybody. There's no way that you would have the capacity to please everybody. And yet God did. And God established rules to set us free. And often we think rules are constricting and confining, and they constrain me, and they're cramping my style. And the truth of the matter is, rules from God are essential for our lives, and without them, we live in chaos. Now, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but back in my day, not so much now, but back in my day, I was known as a little bit of a rebel. My grandma, love her, God rest her soul, she taught me this. She taught me, Dan, every rule is meant to be broken at some point. But I came by it naturally. I came by it inherently. Follow me. My biological mom and my biological dad were high school students, and I was the result of going too far out of wedlock. They broke the rules. They broke God's one man, one woman covenant of marriage, and they had sex in high school, in the heat of the moment, and voila, here I am. So I was born out of, and I was born into rebellion. I inherited that. In fact, all of us, by Adamic depravity, bent towards self, the sin of Adam, the fall of mankind. We're all bent towards selfishness. We have to submit to God's rules. Who rules your day? Who rules you? See, I was born out of rebellion. And I've had to learn that when I do my own thing, there's always consequences to my actions. And sometimes my consequences hurt me, but oftentimes my consequences hurt others. My actions hurt them. I want you to think about this. I was born out of wedlock, high school students, not aborted, but given up for adoption. Larry and Carolyn step into the scene. They adopt Dan. He was the cutest little baby in all the land. You'd never seen a cuter baby, so they picked me. Of course they did. And they brought me home. But you know what they had? They had rules. And I was bent towards rebellion, and I broke the rules, and I hurt my parents very often. I didn't see the hurt. They did. Sometimes your rebellion to God's rules, you don't even see the hurt initially. You're hurting others. Who governs you? Who rules you? And I want you to catch this, that God did not create rules to cramp us. God created rules to set us free. That's why there's rules. That's why there's the 10 Commandments, the OG rules, if you will. Now, we looked at them last week. I had the list. You just saw them again. I want you to listen in to the rules as they're recorded in Exodus chapter 20. Just listen into the rules. And God spoke all these words. Verse 1 of Exodus chapter 20. Verse 2. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt and out of the land of slavery. Have no other gods before me. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of the land of slavery. So don't make yourself an idol. Don't worship anything in heaven below, above or waters below. Don't bow down to anything. I'm a jealous God, punishing the children for your sin. The sins of the father to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me. But I will show love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commands. I'm the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of slavery. Don't misuse my name. The Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. I'm the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of slavery. Keep the Sabbath day holy. 6 days do your work. On the seventh rest. Don't work, neither you nor your son or your daughter, your manservant, your maidservant, nor your animal or an alien, a guest living within your gates. In 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and everything in it. Therefore rest on the Sabbath. It's been made holy for you. I'm the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of slavery. So honor your mother and father so that you may live long in the land. I'm the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of slavery. So don't murder and don't commit adultery and don't steal and don't lie about your neighbor or to your neighbor. And don't covet what your neighbor has. Don't covet their house, their wife, their servants, their livestock, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. I'm the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. I brought you out of slavery. Listen, if you read the 10 Commandments without the heart and the context behind it, you miss the heart of the Creator. If all you see are rules, you're going to want to rebel. When you read the 10 Commandments with the context of, I'm your God, I set you free. I'm your God, I will rescue you. I'm your God, I will deliver you. That's the heart of the Creator. And if all you see is don't, you'll be more apt and more tendencies to rebel against it. See, so often we start with don't have other gods before me. And that's true. That's the very first command. But God spoke these words to the Israelites. He spoke these words to his people, and he speaks them to us, that he brings us out of slavery, out of bondage. He sets us free. Like, I want you to think about the context for these people. When they pop their head off the rock, it's not a pillow, it's a rock. When they pop their head off the rock in the morning, you know what they don't have? A choice. They can't look at their calendar and go, what do you want to do today? Anything fun? No, they are immediately sent to work. Go collect straw. Go make bricks. Go sweep the palace. Go kill some livestock. Go feed the kings and the queens and all the people, all the Egyptians. While you're at it, go get some more straw. Go make some more bricks. Go build some more buildings for us. You're lucky if I'll give you a lunch break. And these Israelites go back to bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night, exhausted, scrounging for food, hoping that they have some left over from the day that they can leave for tomorrow morning's rations, and they put their head on a rock, on a dirt floor in a dirt hut, if they're lucky, and wake up and do it again for 200 plus years. And so when God says, I'm the Lord your God, I set you free, I brought you out of that, what he's doing is he's telling them, he's reminding them, and he's telling us, you were bound up, and my goal is to release you. You were stuck, I will free you up. You're held back and held down, I will lift you up. And many of us in the church have been told the rules, but before there were rules, there was a rescue. God rescued his people. God rescues us. If you're in Christ, you've been rescued. The rules set you free. The rules help us. Some of us have just been told the rules and not taught the reason. If you grew up in a church, not this one or whatever church, if you grew up in the church and you were just told rules but not taught the heart, I'm sorry. Because when you know the heart of God, that he wants to set you free, the rules make sense. The boundaries, the guardrails, they make sense. They are for you. I came across this video. A buddy of mine sent it to me, and I was watching it. And I thought, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And so I just hope you enjoy about the next 90 seconds as much as I have over and over and over this week. I hope you enjoy it.
I hear the British are sending another 5,000 troops.
How will we ever win this war?
By remembering what we fight for.
General Washington.
Sit, please. We need your strength for the fight ahead. We fight for a country of our own, a new nation, where we choose our own laws.
Here, said sir.
Choose our own leaders.
Yes, sir.
And choose our own systems of weights and measures.
Weights and measures, sir?
Yes. Yes, I dream of that one day. Our proud nation will measure weights in pounds, and that 2,000 pounds shall be called a ton.
And what will 1,000 pounds be called, sir?
Nothing? Because we don't have no word for that.
Seems like we should have a word for 1,000 pounds, sir.
And yet we won't. Because we are free men. And we will be free to measure liquids in liters and milliliters. But not all liquids, only soda, wine, and alcohol.
Only those, sir.
Yes. Because for milk and paint, we will use gallons, pints, and quarts, God will.
How many liters are in a gallon, sir?
Nobody knows.
If you want to watch the rest of that, hop on Saturday Night Live. It's hilarious because he talks about, we picked meters for some sports like swimming and track, and we picked yards for football at a game that we don't even use our foot in. The whole sketch is hilarious, and he talks about we did this because we're free, and so we're going to pick Fahrenheit because the rest of the world will use Celsius, and we just want to be different. And isn't that the American way? You're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me how to live. You're not going to govern my life. I'll govern my life, and I will serve me. Listen, when you don't understand the heart of God and why he established the rules and why he established the law, you miss the heart of Jesus, and you actually end up living in bondage. You think you're living freely, but you live underneath a heavy burden outside of the plan, outside of the law. See, God first loved us, then he brought the rules. And if you've grown up believing that there are rules first before the love of God, you've got it backwards. God first loved. It's in his heart, it's in his character, it's in his nature. And if you reverse this, you're going to want to rebel, because rules without reason are ridiculous. God first loved us. And as a Christian, hear me, if you demand rules before you display love, you undo everything God established. I want you to think about this. If I stood up here today and I said, hey, you guys are awesome, but new rule, no red shirts in church. I don't like red. So if you want to come in here, you better not be wearing red. I hate red. Today, I might change it next week, but today, this month, you're out. Out. Borderline, I don't like it, you're out. 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 You would look at me like, you don't have that authority. That's stupid. That is a stupid rule. Now imagine I said, if you want to come to church, my favorite color is blue. I'd really rather you wear blue. And if you want to come to church, you cannot wear a hat. And then you go and invite a friend. Hey, you got to come to my church. It's really cool. I mean, the pastor, he's a little bit of a lunatic, but the church itself is good. But listen, if you want to come, some weird rules. Can't wear red, preferably blue, and no hats. Do you know how quickly this church would become irrelevant? Those are dumb rules. That's a Dan rule. No red shirts? That's dumb. You want to wear a red shirt? Wear a red shirt. Want to wear a blue shirt? Wear a blue shirt. You want to wear a suit? Wear a suit. Just wear something for the love of all things pure and holy. Don't come in here with your birthday suit on, right? That's just bad news. We don't want that. Wear something. Wear what makes you feel comfortable, but don't make your preference somebody else's priority. They're not governing rules. See, God established the governing rules. God established the law. And if a church starts with rules before it shows love and displays love, it fails at its mission. In fact, this is one of the reasons I believe that there's a whole generation missing in the North American church. The 30 to 55-year-olds generally are not in the North American church. There's a whole generation missing because they were told the rules but not taught the heart. And we rebelled. And we talked about this last week, about how one generation tolerates and the next endorses. We walked through that. If you missed it, you can hop on our YouTube page. This is what's happened. And I'm not talking, don't hear this church, hear the church, because it's everywhere. There's a whole generation missing. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I won't use this platform to preach hell and fire and brimstone. I remember growing up in that, and it was like, oh, I better get saved because I don't want to go to hell. But listen, here's my heart. before I share the rules, you have to know and accept and understand God's love for you. His deep love, the heart of God is to give. The heart of God is to set you free. And when you understand the heart of God, then you're more apt to understand, accept, and implement the rules of God. But if all you hear are rules, you're going to be like, this is too hard. I can't do this. In fact, it's one of the things that is probably the most popular verse in all of North America. We see it at football games, and people put it on their eye black, and we see it everywhere. John 3:16 is what? For God so what? Loved. That he what? Gave. The heart of God is to give. The heart of God is to set you free. It's not to cramp your style with the rules. The rules set us free. The rules free us up to live without fear of consequence, to live without fear of hurt. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I love Romans 8:1-2, that if you belong to Jesus, there is no condemnation for those of us that are in Christ. So I don't want to stand up here and preach condemnation. I want to stand up here and preach Jesus, because in Jesus, there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no condemnation. I'm grateful for that the heart of God is to free us up. Now, I want you to catch this. Hear me very carefully. This part is vital. The rules that God established are established out of love, but love doesn't change God's rules. This is where we get confused. Oh, God loves me, I can do what I want. No. God, if he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, his rules never change. One man, one woman, covenant of marriage. That rule doesn't change just because I love. And love is an interesting word right now in culture, isn't it? Love is love. I love who I want to love. Well, if you want to have God's love, you need to follow God's laws. And I can love you without changing God's laws. And I can be a part of your life without changing God's laws. But if you only lead with law and you miss the love part, you undo everything God established. I believe that our love for God stirs within us a freedom to follow the already established rules. Here's what I mean. If you read in the New Testament, there's no better place that I see this play out in the New Testament than in John chapter 4. This concept right here, that our love for God stirs something within us, this freedom to follow God's already established rules. So the rules were established in Exodus 20. In John chapter 4, Jesus is at a well. If you might be familiar with this narrative. Jesus is at a well. He's on his way, and he comes to Samaria, and he sits down. It's the peak heat of the day. The disciples are hungry. Off they go. They're going to go through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Then they're going to come back, and they're going to have a meal together. It's not Sunday. It's open. So the disciples leave, and Jesus sits at the well. Peak heat of the day, and up comes the path, this lady. In the peak heat of the day, you don't go draw water from the well unless you're trying to avoid. That's what this woman was doing. She was avoiding people. She was avoiding condemnation. She was avoiding conversation because she was living in guilt. She was living in shame. She was living in defeat and discouragement. So she slips up this path, and if you can picture it, she gets to the well, and she begins to lower down her bucket, thinking that nobody's there. And off to the side, there's this voice, "Hey, could I have a drink?" And she's startled. First off, Jews and Samaritans don't talk. Men and women that are not married don't talk. Jesus, and we're going to talk about this next week, wasn't Jesus a rule breaker then? He just did it twice. I'm excited for next week. Be here next week, because yes, Jesus did break the rules, but he didn't break God's laws, and there's a difference. And we'll unpack that next week. Little taste, little caveat for you. So Jesus says, "Can I have a drink?" She's startled. She turns around. She begins a conversation with him. And then Jesus says something to her that changes her life forever. Something that stirs within her a freedom to follow God's already established rules. Jesus says, "I know you're thirsty, but I want to give you something and you'll never thirst again. I want to quench your thirst, but not a literal thirst. You'll need to drink water again because you'll die after 3 days, and we know that. I want to give you something that no man and no person has ever given you. Because the man you're with right now is not even your husband. You've been with 5, and now you're on a different one. You're looking for something, and only I can offer it to you," Jesus says. Now, here's why I say that this woman, this love that Jesus shows, stirred within her this freedom to follow God's already established rules. Here's why I say that. Because if you read in John chapter 4, she leaves and she goes back and talks to the very people she's trying to avoid. The very people that were giving her guilt and giving her shame, the very families that she ruined by her adulterous acts, she goes back to those people and says, I have found the Messiah. I am changing my life. And not only does she come back to Jesus, she brings the town with her. She brings the people that she's been condemned from and guilted from and living in shame from. And something stirs within her, this freedom to follow, and she leaves that life of sin. See, God didn't establish rules to condemn us. He established rules and parameters and guardrails and laws to set us free. And I will say this. If we lead with law, we alienate. If we lead with love, we align. If Jesus had sat there at the well with his judgmental conversations, his judgmental words, his judgmental glances, and said some bad words to her because she was breaking the law, it would have alienated her, and an entire community would have never heard the good news of Jesus. But he doesn't do that. He leads with love. I got more for you. I want more for you. I want to offer you something that those 5 and now the 6, they can never offer you. You're searching for something and you're empty. And you're looking for love and relationship to fill that, and you'll never be fulfilled. Only I can offer you something. Had he led with law, you adulterous woman, get out of here. Her life never would have been changed. But because he led with love, her life and an entire community's life was changed. I just want to ask you, is it your life and your rules? Because if that's the case, you're just alienating yourself from God and from people. Or is it his life, God's life, and it's his rules? I'll submit to them. Are they hard? Some of them are. Thou shalt not lie. Man, when those taxes come around, I don't want them to know how much I make. I can fudge that a little. They won't know. Don't covet. Man, you see what they have? I want that. That's the American way. Keep up with the Joneses. Or fill in your last name. Or your neighbors. This is hard. I get it. But if we lead with law, we're just alienating ourselves from God and we're alienating people. If we lead with love, it aligns us to the Father and people look at us and they see it differently and they see Jesus.